interview Anton Roolaart all the way from the Netherlands. He's a progressive rock artist, composer. He's got a new record out. And Anton, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I'm really glad that you reached out and everything.
So I wanted to talk about your early years. It's something you grew up in New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey here, so that's
Yeah.
quite fascinating. Talk about
Well,
that.
so I'm from the Netherlands, and I was born in Tehran, Iran, actually. My mother's from Belgium, my father's from the Netherlands. My father had a job that took him to different countries, and I was only 1 year old when we moved from the Iran to the Netherlands.
Right.
So I don't remember anything from there. And then when I was very young, my father's job moved him to the United States. He was in the textile business.
I see.
And so the whole family moved. That's how I got to the United States. But we went back and forth. All my relatives are in the Netherlands and Belgium. And we lived in Connecticut. We lived in Long Island. Then we moved to North Carolina. I went to University of North Carolina in Charlotte. And then I moved to Jersey working for AT&T Bell Labs, actually.
Oh, okay. I know that
So now
well.
you know how I got to New Jersey because the job, AT&T Bell Labs took me there. And the thought was I was going to work there for a few years. This is right out of uni, right after university.
Right.
And then I was going to move back to Europe. But then I met this woman from El Salvador and we got married.
Oh, wow.
We had kids and the plan changed.
Boy, you
But
got
anyway, I've been divorced now for about 15 years, but it's all good. It's all good. One daughter lives in Brooklyn. The other daughter lives in Jersey, in Lenoka Harbor, actually.
Oh, okay. So you come to the United States often, or just
Much lately, my daughters were just here. They came
okay?
here. We went to Paris. We had a vacation together. We spent time.
Nice.
It was great. They're big. They're big now. They're out of university and everything. So yeah,
So how did you get
cool.
interested in progressive music? Because you're deep into it. You got the prog rock
Yeah.
radio show you had. Talk about that.
Okay, so I started playing classical guitar when I was like 13, and my
Okay.
mother, there was a classical guitarist named Gus Toole in Charlotte, North Carolina, and like I said, I was 13, and he took lessons from Jesus Silva, who took lessons from Segovia. So,
Oh,
so anyway, I took 2.5 years of classical lessons. My mom bought me my first classical guitar. Then my brother I'm the youngest of four. My brother was 6 years older and he's passed away now. That's why I said was. Um, he was in a rock band for a little while, but he's a painter and a graphic artist and a fine artist. But he was in a rock band for a little while, and I said, "Oh, I like that." And I started playing guitar and playing around with
oh,
some other friends, playing New Young, learning stuff on my own.
yeah.
And some guys in school introduced me to Yes. We skipped school one day and we sat around and we partaked in some illegal things, and listened
Yeah.
to some albums. And the guy asked me, "Oh, have you ever heard of Yes?" So these people were already into the whole prog scene as listeners.
Yeah.
And they said, "Have you ever heard of Yes?" I said, "Yeah, I know Roundabout, And then he said, "Oh, wait a minute, wait a minute." So we sat and listened to Close to the Edge, and then I was sold.
Oh
you
yeah. Well,
know.
I loved the Relayer record. That's one of my favorite Yes records. It's so intense.
One of their most ambitious albums. I don't like a lot of the stuff afterwards. I felt was a little bit too polished and
Right.
everything. So, but my main instrument is guitar, and I have to say that Steve Howe has always had a special place in my heart and soul as far as his phrasing, just his style,
Yes.
and the
Yeah.
fact
Yep.
that he switches that he I also switch between electric and acoustic a lot, or not
Okay.
switch, but I play both, and I like that he mixed that up and all the different guitars that he played and the slide and everything. So he was a big influence on me, but also David Gilmour, Pink Floyd, and all those bands. Um, I got I just to go to another part of your question. You said like, how did I get into prog rock radio? So I got cancer a long time ago. I was fairly young,
Okay.
and this was in the early 2000s. And I said, shit, I haven't done anything with my music. And I'm going to try to make this as short as possible. It's a pretty cool
Sure. Sure.
story.
That's fun.
So I was working at AT&T Bell Labs as an engineer, And I was playing music all along in cafes and stuff. I played in a few bands. We played in some cover bands, you know, doing classic rock stuff and original stuff.
Right.
But then, and this was all New Jersey. And then I started thinking about, after I got cancer, I said, you know, I want to make a recording. You know, by the way, I studied sound recording techniques right before I went to university.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to work in a recording studio in the analog days. So I went to a year-long course, how to work in a recording studio, and I love that, and I still do that today. I produce my own albums, and in fact, I've recently built up some more analog gear as well, because I just have a place in my heart for it. I can't tell you if it's better or not, but it's just, I like it. Anyway, so I had an idea of an album, my first album, which you know is Dreamer.
Right.
That was in 2007. And a friend of mine at work introduced me to Rave Tesar from Renaissance, who also lives in New Jersey. Lived in Ridgewood.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so yeah, he lived in Ridgewood, New Jersey. He now lives in Warwick, New York, actually.
Okay.
But him and I have been buddies ever since. And I consider him a little bit my musical mentor for my 3 albums. He's been involved in all 3 of them. But and there's a lot of time in between my albums, as you know.
I see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, you know, say something about that, and I agree with them. I need to crank out more shit.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, but this is an interesting story. So I was thinking at home in the early 2000s, listening through my 56K baud modem. I was listening to internet radio from Europe and stuff. And I thought, you know, I want to do my first album. I'm going to promote it myself on internet radio. I typed in, being an engineer, I typed in progrockradio.com. I'm going to call those guys and see if they'll help me promote my album. When I typed in progrockradio.com in the early 2000s, it said domain name available. No one has it.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
10 minutes later, I took it out my credit card and paid $20, and I had it. And I still own progrockradio.com, the domain name. That's a powerful domain name, by the way.
It is.
And one day I might, you know, I had that radio station for 10 years. And one day I will probably start doing that again when I'm more retired and I have more time. Anyway, so I called up a buddy of mine who had an alternate internet radio station at AT&T. And I said, okay, I got this domain name. What do I do? I mean, I never thought about having a radio station, to be honest with you.
Isn't that something? That's great.
But a guy at work said, you know, it's not hard. You buy this software. There's this software called SAM. It's made by a guy from South Africa. And it allows you to broadcast from your PC or whatever. And it's still around, that software, by the way. It's used by many people. And so I was learning the ropes, and it has its own programming language. So I started collecting records, and I decided I was going to do melodic progressive rock. You know, there's different genres within rock. So I'm doing this. I'm still figuring my shit out, how to do all this. And I'm having fun. It's fun, you know.
That's the main thing.
6 months later, I get a phone call, and it's Chris Squire's PR person.
Oh my gosh!
It said Chris Squire is getting back together with the Sin.
Oh my Lord!
And he wants to promote the whole thing. Remember when the Sin came out?
Oh, absolutely. You know, did you know the record store Vintage Vinyl?
Yeah, I know. I was there. I was at the Sin show when Chris Squire was there. Were you there? Yeah, I was there. I was
that's
there.
Amazing.
I built a relationship with Chris Squire and Steve Nardelli. Anyway,
okay, go ahead.
So they said, you're the first person we called because you're prog rock radio, and Chris asked us to contact the most important radio stations. I had no clue what I was doing. I just started out. I was figuring all this shit out. I put my hand over the phone. I turned to my wife and said, you won't believe who's calling. So they invited me to London, and I said, hell yeah, I'm going.
That's amazing.
And then they gave me a record deal on Umbrella Records after a little while when they got to know me. And I interviewed them. Like, I was the first one that did an interview when they reformed with the Sin, which was the band prior to Yes that Peter Banks and Chris Squire were in, right?
Okay.
So anyway, that's kind of a cool story.
It is.
That kind of like catapulted me into a little bit into the scene, right?
Were you interviewing artists on that radio show too?
Yeah. So I interviewed Chris Squire, all those people. I've interviewed John Anderson, Steve.
Oh man, all the biggies.
That was late. That came later. When the phone call from Chris Squire was before, I was still figuring out how to get the station running, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was learning. I had not planned on having a radio station, but I figured I got this domain name. It's really good. something with it. So,
Well,
so there you go.
that's the best way it to happen. I never planned this podcast show.
Yeah.
This just
So
happened.
anyway,
Go ahead.
I'm blessed with stories like that in my life. I mean, I've had hills and valleys, just like anybody else, I guess. But that's a really, I love telling the story, and it's really true. And anyway, so I got a deal with them, and I worked with Steve Nardelli, and I got to hang out and with all those guys in London,
And
and that was really nice.
so then the prog rock radio show, is that still online? Can people still
No,
do
I
it?
had it from 2006 to 2016.
Okay.
I kept everything, but it's down. I stopped.
Okay.
I couldn't handle it anymore. It was taking up too much of my time. I tried to, with banner ads and stuff, try to make a little bit of money, but I was just running out of time. I was working full time. I was raising a family. It was just a lot.
So let's talk about this first record, Dreamer. I mean, you got like this symphonic sound and beautiful guitar work. Uh,
Thank you. Thank you.
Talk about some of
Yeah.
that and the musicians who helped you on that.
So the same guy that introduced me to Rave Tesar, and so Rave and I started working on this whole idea, and him and I became very good friends, and we're still very good friends. And again, he's kind of my mentor as far as production is concerned, And when I need a good piano player, and he's played in a couple of my bands, when I needed a keyboard player. But anyway, Dreamer. I got a guy, and he did the album cover for Advent. The
Okay. I
Michael
know them.
Phipps.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, their very first album. He did their album cover, and I know that guy too. Those guys from Alan and stuff, Alan Benjamin. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I
So
interviewed him. Go ahead.
yeah, so Alan Benjamin, they had an artist do their album cover. So I worked with the artist for the idea. I like surrealism. I'm an artist myself. I do a lot of pencil drawing and digital art as well. My father and my brother were both artists, so it's in the family, besides making music. And Dreamer was, it was just songs that I've done acoustically for so long. But then, honestly, when I get in the studio and I spend hours with keyboards coming up with different patches, trying different sounds. Of course, I'd love to have Mellotron in there or whatever. And then also with the guitar, I played a Heritage 575, which is similar to the sound of a ES 175 that Steve Halper.
Right.
So I've owned various different guitars. If you actually bought my latest CD, I have a picture of all my guitars that I had, but it's in the latest CD. But anyway, I love recording. I came up with the songs. I'm a little bit of a dreamer myself. I believe in pursuing your dreams. Manon is a story about, it's a kind of a fantasy story around a real thing that happened where I met a woman in the Netherlands when I was very young, traveling, and we ended up having a little summer affair, and it was great. But then I made it into a symphonic story,
Yeah,
and
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Are these keep going.
These are all my pieces that I wrote. Yes, if that's what you were going to ask.
Yes, right. I was going to ask if you wrote all the songs.
Yeah, and I played most of the instruments, but obviously not drums. The drummer. So there were two drummers on that album. One is Charles Descarfino, who's a friend of Rave's, and also has recently been touring with the orchestra version of Tommy with the Who, with the actual Who. But there's an orchestra behind them, and he's a New York kind of like orchestral percussionist. So he does a lot of Broadway stuff as well. Okay, so he played on half the songs. The other half was Rich Behrens from the band Mastermind from Jersey. Do you remember them?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Well, the Behrens brothers, right?
That's something. Small
yeah.
world.
So those guys played on there, and then I got some local musicians from the Jersey Shore to play bass. Vinny Perrier is an amazing bass player. He played bass on the first two albums. On this last album that came out in January, I decided to play bass, and it's really cool. I'd like to talk about that later.
Sure, yes.
But that's kind of the album, and as far as the themes are a little bit dreamy, a little bit surrealistic lyrics, but I don't think. A lot of the music comes out as progressive rock, but I don't think like, okay, I'm only going to write a progressive rock song. I just start with something acoustically, and then I build it, and it ends up being a symphonic rock, prog rock song. but that's not important to me. What's important is just that it's beautiful. You know, it
Now,
doesn't have to be. That's what I'm
do
saying.
these studios have the keyboards already, or are these your keyboards that you're?
Most of these keyboards are mine. I
Okay,
mean, I use Native Instruments a lot. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They have
right.
all those libraries of samples. So I use Native Instruments. I use various Moog synthesizers. I don't have physical Moog, but I have the complete control Native Instruments keyboards. They're very nice. I
Oh,
can't
that's
show you
great.
right now. But so most of the keyboards I did, except for when you hear a real piano player, that's Rave.
Oh, I see. But you played most of the instruments. Now, what about the second record now, the Plight of Lady Oona? How did that name come about? That's an interesting name.
Yeah. So it's a personal story. So the title track, and Annie sings backup vocals in there.
Oh, Annie Haslam?
Yeah, Annie Haslam
That's
plays.
right.
Yeah, she plays. It's a long song, about 13 minutes. I had a relationship with a woman in Argentina, and it was originally long distance. And I went to visit her, but what happened was one day she was in her little kitchen in her apartment, and the thing for the hot water thing blew up in her face, and she got burnt really bad.
Oh my gosh.
And that story, the plight of Lady Oona, is she had a nickname of Oona. Okay,
Okay.
Oona also happens to be the name of Charlie Chaplin's wife, Charlie
Oh,
Chaplin. But anyway, but she had that kind of that name. Lady Oona was somewhere in a nickname that she conveyed to me one time. And I wrote it as a little mystical story, like a princess and soldiers, but it was her battle of dealing with life afterwards. It took her years to recover, and
oh
her
my gosh.
face
Yeah,
looked
imagine.
pretty good, but she went through PTSD and everything. She was living all alone,
Oh
and
my
we
God.
were in love, but then we fell out of love, and it got a little weird. But that's what that's about. And then the other songs are I mean, not, you could say there's some of the songs are theme related, but the other songs are just other things that I had in my back pocket acoustically that I started to develop into these symphonic songs. um, the song "Standing in the Rain" I think is pretty cool, but in the back of my mind I'm thinking of something like a Peter Gabriel thing with those heavy drums that when they come in and stuff.
Right,
And
right.
that started actually with a little loop that I heard. I like in my collection of software. I use Cubase, and before I used to use Cakewalk, and I started with a loop, and then I developed that into this idea, and then I brought in a real drummer, and I recorded those. All the drums were recorded in a farmhouse studio in the middle of nowhere in the Netherlands in
Oh my, that
2011.
is okay. And so then you just, that's pretty interesting how that happened. Is that and the drums,
Yeah.
were they recorded first, the drums, or were they
No,
in?
no, no, no. They came later. They came
Okay,
later. But so I would program drums with my ideas,
right.
and they would be rough. They would be rough, and I always, that's the way I work. I program drums, and I give it to a drummer. I say, "This is kind of what I'm thinking," and I've been told that my ideas are fairly good, but it still doesn't sound like a real drummer. So then they're just for conveying ideas, and then the real drummer comes in the studio. Now that drummer is a Dutch guy that I'm still friends with, that lives not too far from here, about an hour away from me. He was in a band called Night Area, and they were a pretty big Dutch prog band, or rock band, I should say. And yeah. By the way, for the second album, I introduced a second keyboard player, Kendall Scott, who now plays with Nectar.
Oh, what? That's
But
right. I've heard of him.
yeah,
Yes.
so Kendall Scott now plays with Nectar, and Kendall, I guess it's possibly, I think it's safe to say that I was the first prog band that he played in, like when he played for me. He's a really good friend of the bass player that I had, Vinny Perrier. They grew
Okay.
up together,
Right.
and all from the Jersey Shore. He's from Fairhaven, and he played on the second album, and he did a beautiful solo on Gravity. Gravity was kind of a popular song with a lot of people, and just I worked a lot with Kendall. I'm still in touch with him. In fact, I just texted him the other day. So yeah, he's with Nectar now. He's been with Nectar for a while. He also plays with Project Object, Andre's Zappa cover band. So
Yeah, he's pretty busy, I tell you. He's keeping it going like yourself. So
yeah,
did you put this out yourself, these
yes.
records?
So the second album I did completely myself. I didn't do anything with Umbrella Records like for the first album, and I tried to do, so I've also worked in advertising. I worked in New York City for Publicis USA, which is like an advertising agency. So I felt I would just release it myself for this one. And I actually, for each album, my production skills were getting better and better. And I also think that with the third album, I really paid a lot more attention. I used a lot of analog gear as well on the third album, which we'll talk about next, I guess.
Yes. Oh.
I, but I feel that there's some really good songs there. Sometimes I feel the album was overproduced, like I got into it too much, But that's why on the third album, I wanted it to sound a little bit more raw, a little bit more like from the 70s,
It does.
You know
I
what
could hear it. I could hear it definitely. Now, how did you link up with Leonardo with MoonJune
Okay.
Records?
So I had progrockradio.com, and back when I was living in Jersey and New York City, Leonardo was sending me his music and talking to me all the time, and then we'd run into each other. We weren't really becoming friends at that time, but I'd see him sometimes, and we're both from Europe, and he I went to his festival 3 years ago in Spain, and then 2 years ago I played in a festival as the festival as an opening act. He invited me. We became friends, and we started. So he moved to Spain about a year after I did to move to Europe when I moved to the Netherlands, and he loves Spain, and he's running his shop from there. And I just started talking more with him, and I asked him for like, hey, I'm going to put this out myself. He goes, no, don't put this out yourself. He goes, this is not a typical album that he would normally release on his label, because most of his album is like fusion and jazz.
Yes, right.
And my album's a little different, and I really appreciated him. He said, no, Anton, you've done so many, we've developed a friendship. Let me help you with distribution. Great. So we did that. And so far, I think I don't know if you saw any of the reviews. I posted them on my website, links to them. Right. It's been pretty positive. So he's really been helping me a lot with the promotion. And also now I'm playing in the festival in a few weeks in Italy with the MoonJune Festival 2026. And I'm playing this week, and I'm going to play in Louvain-la-Neuve in Belgium, the French part of Belgium. Oh. I'll be playing there this weekend by myself. But the thing in Italy is with the band. It's going to be tricky because we haven't rehearsed together yet. The band are a couple of musicians from the States, a couple of musicians from the Netherlands, including myself. And then we're going to have one rehearsal, and then we're going to do the gig.
Oh, my gosh. Now, what's the band? Who's in the band now? Is it different members? Do you have a new band?
So I really can't say that I have a band. This is just something that I'm putting together for the thing. So it's talking about bands. I've had different versions of my band. So it's always been the Anton Roolaart band. But for 1 year, Jane Gedder played guitar with me. She's with Adam Holtzman's partner, right? Okay. I don't know. She's doing a lot of things and playing in Prague stock and stuff like that. Jane Gedder. Okay. She's an amazing musician.
Jane Gedder, okay.
And Adam Holtzman, who's playing with Steve Wilson. And,
okay. I know him. Yeah. I interviewed Adam.
Okay, so it's his wife.
Oh, yeah, so Jane, that's right.
When I played live, I needed guitars. Now, before COVID, I had a band that consisted of Bob Kirby, a drummer that I knew for many, many years, and we were in a band many years ago. And he's coming over for this gig in Italy. And when I played with Jane Gedder, Bob was also in that band, that lineup. And so
sounds exciting.
So I can't really say this is a band. This is just a group that I'm putting together for this festival. I definitely, for anybody that's listening, I want to get something going on here in Europe. We don't all have to live in the Netherlands, but I really want to pursue the band thing a little bit more. But in the meantime, I'm playing a lot of gigs acoustically. Economically and financially, it works out a lot better if I just do a lot of acoustic gigs as well. I love singing and playing guitar, but I think the material is good. And if I got a good band behind me, good musicians, it's going to be pretty awesome. We'll see how it goes in Italy, but we only have one rehearsal together.
Oh my gosh. Boy, that's something.
I know it's a little tricky.
Well, you have great musicians playing with you. I'm sure it'll work out good.
Bele Beledo, he's playing. He's on Leonardo's label, and he's playing electric guitar in my band in Italy.
Okay.
And
Well,
he's also doing another gig with his own band. So
you were lucky to get these musicians to agree to this and do it. You have a lot of connections. That
I
helps.
also, I got a lot of connections through prog rock radio originally, and I will say that moving to Europe was a little tricky in connections because most of my connections were in the Northeast.
Right.
When I moved to Europe, Amsterdam's a little different story. It's not as big and happening as New York. It's a lovely place. Have you ever been to Amsterdam?
What's that?
Have you ever been to Amsterdam?
No, once, yeah, a long time ago. I think it was a
Okay.
college trip.
So when I moved here, it was right in the beginning of COVID. The first 6 months of COVID, I was still in Manhattan. I lived on 22nd Street, right behind the old Chelsea Hotel.
Oh boy,
Between
wow, that's historic.
like literally, if you look out the back window, you can see the back of the Chelsea Hotel. I lived there for a while. Anyway, and in fact, my neighbor told me the apartment that I rented used to be rented by the girlfriend of like one of the Ramones, and he
Oh
used to be
wow,
over there all the time. So I was like in an apartment with one of the Ramones. He used to live with his girlfriend, which is kind of cool, on 22nd Street. I'm only saying that because it's kind of a nice,
yeah,
flair story,
that is.
But yeah. So I forgot what I was going to say. What we were going
You
to
were
talk
talking
about
about the
now.
band and
Oh yeah.
living in New
So
York.
so I was saying that in New York I had access to a lot of musicians. Here is a different story. But if we can talk about the third album, I found a Dutch
Yes.
saxophone player, and he also plays flute on the third album, The Ballad of General Jupiter. So, shall we talk about the third album, or?
Yes, really, because it's very symphonic and it's got these rich sounds. So talk about the record, how you did it, when you recorded
How are
it.
we doing time wise? I don't know how much time we have.
No, go ahead.
We're
You
30
have
minutes in. I just want to make sure we don't run out of time. Okay.
okay.
So, the Ballad of General Jupiter was actually, so I've always been in protests for political things. And I mean, I feel I wanted to say and say things, So I
Right.
used to go to protests. I'm not going to talk about politics or anything, but also climate change. I mean, me and my father knew a lot. He's traveled all over the world. We used to have discussions when I was 20 years old about that there's going to be big problems with climate and
Yeah.
pollution and everything. It's always been a concern of mine, even when the world wasn't talking about it a lot. But that's changed in the last
Yeah.
five,
Oh, it
10.
has.
Now everybody's concerned, and it's basically become upfront in the news now, right? I mean, there's all kinds of different stories surrounding it, but I do believe we should take care of the planet, basically.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So I wrote this song, and I've always been a big Bowie fan as well, by the way,
Oh,
besides
same here.
prog rock. Yeah. So in my mind, I kind of look at the Space Oddity, the Ziggy Stardust time from David Bowie, and kind of have a picture of that thought, those times. And I had a song that I wrote like 30 years ago about a guy that comes from the future to the present to warn us and to save his family and his society from us destroying the planet. Okay. Or ruining the planet. And I called the song Messenger. But then when I started working on this third album project, I said, I don't like the name Messenger. And then I started thinking of like something like, I have another song on the album called Star Child.
Right.
And
I heard
then
that.
I started thinking of, okay, let's make this a little bit more interesting
Right.
and be a character that comes from the future, General Jupiter. And you've listened to the album and everything,
Yeah.
and it's about. For me, I'm very visual, and I believe the artwork, which I do. I did all the digital artwork for the second and the third album, not the first one, but the second and third. And the artwork. I don't like to be too direct in the lyrics. Like if I'm talking, I don't want to say, genocide or anything like that. I want to
Right.
make it subtle, and then I want to make the pictures and the artwork from the album help you connect the dots. you know. So I changed the name from Messenger to the Ballad. Ballad meaning like a plea or like like something with emotion,
Right,
that
right.
someone is saying to this man from the future, General Jupiter. And I also care a lot about the children, So there's a little child's voice and also on the album cover, you can see her right there,
Oh
standing
yeah,
next to Jupiter.
yep. There, yeah, see it.
There you go.
All right,
And
great.
yeah, so, I mean, you can see pictures online, and if you hopefully you can get a physical copy at some point because there's stories in there and stuff and more art. But yeah, so I thought the Ballad of General Jupiter, and at first I was thinking General Jupiter. I don't know. I don't know why that just popped out of
Yeah,
my head.
that's
General Jupiter. I thought it rhymed kind of General
yeah.
Jupiter. I don't know, or it flowed easily out of my mouth, and and actually I have a voice of a radio announcer in the beginning talking about in the future they're going to create this bubble machine, which is the bubble machine that you see right here.
Right,
You
right.
know,
See that? Yep.
yeah, yeah. So it's
That's
all
funny.
everything's connecting,
Well, it comes
and
from you naturally. That's what you came out. That's the title of the record. It's great.
yeah, and then Rain is a song. Uh, let's just say this. Um, I had this vision, if I can explain it. I like to explain things visually because for me, it's like a story, and I have stories to tell. And also, another thing that's very important for me is that I like people to take the pictures and the music and then create a scene or a world inside your head of what this is about. It may not be what I intended. It doesn't matter. As long as you create something, I give you some pictures and I give you some music and lyrics. And I would say to any listener, just create your own world from that.
Yeah.
Anyway, Rain is a song about, I pictured like this rock star type guy sitting in a little chair in his second story apartment, looks out the window and he sees this woman, an Islamic woman, crying, reading the newspaper as her home country is being destroyed or something.
Yeah.
So that's basically it, just that. And her name is Rain.
Oh, that's a name. Now, do the lyrics come after the vocals come after the lyrics? You create the music?
The vocals come after. Yeah, you mean the after the music?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, yeah. The vocals, the lyrics come.
Right.
Sometimes I have written something. Maybe sometimes I write poetry. I've written poetry before, and so sometimes I'll start off with a little poem and then I'll develop it into a story. Um, it can go either way. But generally, I have at least before I start the music, I have a few lines, at least like a verse,
Okay. And then it comes
And
from
then,
there, right? Just
and
happens.
then I need to develop it. But so I would say more, more than 50% of the time, this is some lyrics come first, and then I start thinking about building a melody with those lyrics and a song out of it.
That's great the way it came out, though, because it's really, you got that
Yeah.
70s sound to it, that everybody
I
really,
really I
really
really
liked.
wanted, yeah, I really wanted to have that, and you can tell some of the influences and stuff. And then I decided to do a cover song for the first time, which I want to do more, by the way. I did a very old song from Yes that's not even progressive rock. It's more like a British pop song. Yesterday Today is the
Oh,
last song on
yeah.
the album.
Right. Yeah. It's a great
I just
song.
always thought that was a beautiful song, and I thought also, I believe also, sometimes you have to also think a little bit of marketing. Let's make some songs here that are like could also appeal to a younger generation, maybe like a sweet song or or ballad or pop song or something. I think that, and there's nothing wrong with that. I
No.
like those songs too. And for me, that's always been a sweet song that John Anderson wrote. So yeah.
What's your opinion of progressive music rock these days? Is it still going? Are the bands still creating this kind of music?
Well, I think like you read a lot about beat, right?
Right.
Redoing with Steve Vai
Yep.
and Danny on the drums and Tony Levin and Adrian Blue, right? And
Yep.
they're redoing some of the music from that period. So I think a lot of us musicians still like that period,
Yep.
and I'm certainly in there. Um, I just think there's I don't know if you could say progressive rock. It's kind of weird if you think about it nowadays. I know back then in the early '70s, when I interviewed some of these guys like from Yes and stuff, they never called it progressive rock back then. They
No, you're
just said
right. You're right.
they were just doing rock music and trying to be a little bit more artistic. I actually like the term art rock better because I think art rock can apply in different decades. Progressive rock seems to be okay, it's progressive from this rock from this decade to that decade, but I think art rock can be the same in every decade as far as it's still art, it's different kinds of art, you know?
Yeah.
So I would prefer to term, when you ask me what do I think of prog rock, I would say let's call it art rock. You know?
What my feeling is that, everybody created these long records. We had more of an attention span to listen to those long songs. Now, I don't think the younger generation wants to hear a 20-minute song.
That's true. I will tell you that you're right. You can't make it too long, but you can still do a 4 or 5 minute
Oh,
song.
yeah, absolutely.
But I will tell you, so I've been playing acoustically in some clubs here in the Netherlands and some theaters, and I've been getting a younger crowd. And
Okay.
I'm talking about like 24-year-old girls and guys, mostly women actually.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I'm doing old King Crimson songs, like from like, I Talk to the Wind or
Yeah,
Epitaph, and they're like coming up to me and saying, "Man, I love that song," and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, that's the shit." Then I tell them how old that song is, you
that's
know.
something. Yeah. Well, those songs always
So
stand up. They'll never.
so I think the music was great. I do think that sadly the attention span of the younger people, including my daughters, have really changed. I think a lot of people, younger people, are focusing on beats and vocals, like vocalists, rather than guitar solos or
Right,
good
right,
keyboard,
right.
things like that. Um, However, it's up to us to change that, and also now that we have the internet and record labels are play a different role. I mean, the record labels can promote Taylor Swift all they want, and
Right.
she's doing well. So they could. I do believe if record label big ones that are the ones that are like supporting Taylor Swift, if they would change their mind to progressive rock, then we all the young people would listen to progressive rock like that.
That's
It's
true.
just if you feed somebody something and
Yes,
it
it's
tastes
true.
pretty good, they'll eat it, you know? And the problem is they're being fed, unfortunately, in my opinion, uh, I mean, there's some nice vocalists, of course, but as a musician, it's not just vocalists. It's like also you want to have some cool, you know,
That's
instrumentalists.
true. You're right. You need that.
So I think we just need to do it and maybe not create too long songs or either then call it an opera. But it's funny. Classical music is also, classical music has very long
Yes,
pieces
it
too.
does. Yep.
And I love that, you know. Um, but there's still some people listen to classical music, although it's gone down. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I do feel we can only keep on doing it,
That's
and
all you
and
can
you
do,
know,
right? People will
and
find you.
and yeah, I mean, we're not. I've already, we've already established that I'm not going to make any money out of this, so I'm just going to do it to a point where I can at least, try to break even,
Well, you're
and
keeping this
that's why I
genre
have another
alive.
job.
Yep. You're keeping it alive and you're enjoying it. Now, is this new record going to be available just on MoonJune? Are you selling it
I
every
have I can sell it directly. I also
Okay.
sell digitally on my. So I have physical copies so that when I have gigs, I can. It's available in vinyl, CD, and streaming services already.
Got it.
Um, I but I have my own Bandcamp as well. But I would prefer that they go to Leonardo's to
Right.
buy the physical media, and if they want to just download it, go to my Bandcamp. Uh, and a lot of people don't have Bandcamp, so I was thinking of other places that they could download it. I mean, I have like different websites and stuff, but I right now I'm just focusing on that. I don't. think a lot of young people are into Bandcamp. I think just the people.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's unfortunate. And I think I'm going to talk to Leonardo. I mean, not that I'm not going to change his mind or anything, but I think we've got to find other ways that are more accessible. I definitely want to address a younger crowd, not just
Yeah.
an older crowd.
Right. You
And,
should.
and I've had success with that playing locally. I mean, I'm in my 60s, right? But I get up there, I try to dress nice, I try to sing nice, and it's working. I'm getting good responses from people.
That is
I had a
good.
show 2 weeks ago in a small cafe, and you wouldn't believe how many young people came up to me and was like, "I love your tunes,"
That is
and
really
they
super.
know nothing about progressive rock.
Now, what are you going to, besides Italy, where else you going to be playing? Just more local gigs?
So I only have 3 gigs lined up for the next few months. One of
Okay.
them is in Belgium this Saturday. I'm going this Saturday. It's a town called it's a town called Louvain-la-Neuve. It's about 40 minutes south of Brussels. It's in a French part, and luckily I speak some French, so that's good.
Okay.
Um, and then that's just one gig, and it's an outdoor gig, kind of like an outdoor thing with a like bleachers for like 100 people, and they have shows at night, 2 acts
Right.
every night. I'm doing that Saturday night, this Saturday, and then I'm flying out the week of the 20th, and the festival's the 23rd, 24th, and 25th. I'm playing on the last day on the 25th at 6:30 p.m. There's going to be 3 different stages, I think, for the MoonJune Festival. Everything's outdoors.
Oh,
It's
okay.
going to, I'm a little bit worried about a heat wave
Oh,
happening
yeah, I
because
imagine.
we had a heat wave here a couple of weeks ago, and it was terribly hot. It was like over 100 degrees
That's what
Fahrenheit.
we had
Right?
105 here. Same thing.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So that's my only concern, but it's going to be fun. It's rock and roll, you know?
Anton, you're just having fun with it. You love music, and it's great.
Yeah.
You just keep creating and playing.
And I
It's your
do, yeah. And I also think we have a voice, you know? I think we can appeal. I think sometimes it's nice to say things, and whether it be a storyteller or sometimes, like in this album, there were some what I think are serious concepts that are already being talked about, but that I feel we can convey as an artist in a different way than any other person.
Well, we come from listening to the great '70s period of British
Yeah.
British music, American. So we want to get younger people listening to this because it's
Yeah.
what a special period.
Yeah, no, I love it. And in fact, I'm almost to the point where I won't have to work as much. Um, uh, Not by my choice. I just got let go from a company,
Okay.
but and I'm going to focus more on music even more now. Like no more 7 years between each album. I'm
Yeah,
going to try
maybe
to
you
come
could
out
put something out next year and surprise
exactly,
everybody. Yeah.
exactly. I hope to do that next year, and I want to do some more. I want to do some of the songs that I really like from that period that are a little bit more acoustic prog rock. I want to do some cover stuff too.
You could
I
convert a
want
lot of that. The people will love that.
Yeah, I think that will be really good because it's a little bit recognizable, and I think I have my interpretations of it will be kind of interesting. So yeah,
That is great. Well, I think we're wrapping
I'm
it
looking
up
forward to
here.
it.
I
Yeah,
mean,
and
really nice to meet you, and another Jerseyite here. It's really something that Red
yeah,
Bank and so close.
so that mood synthesizer, it's really nice. You just have it sitting there on the chair.
Isn't that something? Well, I need a little decoration, and I have a
You
new
just
rep.
want to see
I like.
your synthesizer.
I add a little decoration if it's a guitarist. I put a guitar up there, so the
Yeah.
set keeps changing all the time. I love just every show a different look. Makes it
Okay. Well,
fun.
it's really nice speaking with you.
You too.
I enjoy.
Okay, Anton,
Um,
good luck. Yeah, and if you're ever in this part of the world, look me up.
where do you live in Jersey? Where do you live in Jersey?
South Plainfield, New
Okay, I know where
Jersey.
that is.
Yeah, it's
I
close to
lived in
near New
Metuchen for
Brunswick, Piscataway, that area.
Yeah, I lived in Metuchen for a little while.
Oh, that's a booming town. They're
Oh,
adding
really?
they're adding so many restaurants and apartments and condos. You wouldn't believe it if you saw it these days.
I used to do gigs with the New Jersey Prog House,
Okay.
and my first gig was in Metuchen, in the old schoolhouse with the New
Oh, I
Jersey.
know that place. You know, they still have shows there.
Yeah, so the first place that I ever played, I opened up for Is a long time ago.
Oh, well, I
It
saw
was like,
Tom. I saw Tom Breslin there one time.
yeah,
His own
yeah.
band.
I was probably there. Yeah, I remember that. I
That was a
remember that.
great show. He's a
So
great guy.
Jim Robbins is a friend of mine. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was really good. So, and then there's a big prog scene with Alan Benjamin. He promotes a
Yeah.
lot of things still.
Yeah. No, I've known him for a while. I mean, he also used to work in the same building I used to work in.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, he's a great
Yeah.
guy too. So
Small world.
it is. It
Yeah.
is.
Alan and Amy, his wife.
Okay, yeah, I don't know her, but you know, he was
Yeah.
really good. So I'm glad you were part of this series here, and good luck with the record. And sounds like, you know, you're having fun, and that's the main thing. And keep that
Yeah.
music going.
So people can go to my website and if they want to purchase it, antonroolaart.com. So
Okay,
yeah.
and send me the whatever else you want me to put in the description, and I'll make sure it's in there so people can find your music.
Oh, when you publish this, you mean?
Yes,
Okay. Yeah. Well, let me know when you do that.
I
Okay.
will. I'll absolutely. I let everybody know when it's up. I just send you the link, and we're ready to
And then I
go.
can share it.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Great.
great talking to you, and good luck out there. Take
Thanks,
care.
Dennis.
Thank
Have a
you.
good
Bye
one.
bye now. See ya.